I am fine. It's just I've got this audio book, I'm gonna be alright. Hi, hello, and welcome back. I am going to start with a little quick apology because I missed last week for doing a wrap up. Basically, I started a new job and I'm doing a lot more hours than I was, so I don't really have time I don't have as much time to be doing this as I did. So I'm just figuring out a new routine with it all, and hopefully I have at least started to figure that one out. So we should be back up to regular uploads soon. I say soon. They should be back starting from this week. Starting from when you're watching this, I should be back to regular uploads. But I think that's about it. I don't think I've got anything else to talk about. But yeah, apologies for missing last week. I'm sure you're all so devastated. But let's get right onto it, shall we? We have 2 reviews this week, and we're going to start with The Glittering Art of Falling Apart by Ilana Fox. I don't have my copy on me, I've left it downstairs, and I'm not going to go and get it because it's late. Also realised I'm not wearing my watch, which I just realised I'm not wearing it, and I'm having one of those feelings where I'm very much used to having it on there because I made pizza today. I'm rambling. Keto, I don't have a script this week. I usually would, but again, I'm still finding my feet with timing and stuff, and I kind of finished this book maybe about 10 minutes before starting filming. I'm planning my timing a bit better from next week, but it is what it is. So, yeah. Also, yeah, the no script thing, expect some rambling and tangents and divergence and all that good stuff. So, onto an actual review. The Glittering Art of Falling Apart by Ilana Fox. This was one that I pulled from my shelf. I don't know when I bought it. I think I got it in one of a lot of the books on my shelf are from when Tesco does those little 2 for however much. I think it's like for £8 or something like this, like a 2 for 1 sale kind of thing. On books, a lot of books that I own are from that. Oh, also, if I look like I'm squinting a lot, it's because I have a new light. I say a new light, it's just a lamp that I found from some stuff from my old house, and I'm not used to having a light right in front of me, and it's quite glaring, so hopefully I'm actually looking at the camera properly, and hopefully I'm not just like squinting a lot. I'm not used to it, but that'll be fine. Yeah, I've probably had it for at least this book, because again, rambling. I've probably had it for at least 2-3 years. It's hard to know because it was sort of one of those books that's been a staple of my shelf for a little while, that I've gone and like, I should read this, I'll get onto it eventually. It is one of the books that is one of the reasons I've been doing this, like just actually read my bookshelf this year, and I'm really glad I finally got onto it. Reading through the blurb, I didn't really know what I expected compared to like what I actually got. I don't know that. Hang on, let my brain come back to me a second. Like, I don't know what I expected going in, other than what the blurb tells you. It can't tell you a whole story, kind of thing. But I was really surprised at how dark it got at times. Basically, there are 2 lives being followed that are interconnected. We have Eliza Boyle living her life from, her birth in the late 60s, through her life through the 80s, most of what you see is her life in the 80s as she leaves her parents to go and make a life in Soho, and it doesn't go well. Well, it does and it doesn't. It's complicated. And we are also following Cassie. I can't remember if you actually get her surname, probably, but brain fell out. Brain no work. It never does. And she is trying to restore an old family home. So while her family no longer lives there, her family used to be a lot more sort of high society than it is now. That'd be Cassie's grandmother had lived there, and her mother had lived there for some time, but I believe left in her late teens, early 20s kind of thing. And it's sort of about how their lives interconnect, because it becomes pretty clear that Eliza's mother, so Eliza is the girl from the 80s, Eliza's mother was part of the family that owned the home that Cassie's restoring, and it's all interconnected. Basically, Cassie finds Eliza, if you will, through Eliza's diaries, and it's really interesting. I will say, as much as I enjoyed it, the sections in the 80s aren't written in diary form, and that has pros and cons. So the pros are, you're not questioning how she's writing it, because sometimes you get that if you're reading diary form. There's a word for it, but I can't remember. But if you're reading books that are written like diaries, there's sometimes this feeling, if you've ever read Dracula, where you're going, how and when is he writing this? Because sometimes it feels like they're writing it in the moment where they're running from something or something like that. It doesn't feel like it quite fits. But while that's a pro, it's also sort of a con, because you're being told this story as if, you know, it's just third person past tense. And the thing is, Cassie is still learning the same story that you're being told, but she would be reading it as if it was a diary. And there are some things where you're going, especially towards the end of the book, how is this being found out by a diary? It's one of those things where it doesn't break the enjoyment of the book. I still really enjoyed this book. I thought it was wonderful, but there are points where I went, this doesn't make enough sense. So I think there is a bit of needing to suspend disbelief sometimes with it, but that's fine. I think sometimes you've got to go, you know what, turn off thinking a bit too long. Like, just don't think too much into it. It did not harm my enjoyment of the book, so it's fine, you know. But if that's the sort of thing that you're likely to overthink, maybe this book isn't for you, kind of deal. But overall, I enjoyed it so much. I am so glad I finally got around to it. I think this is... brain fell out. Yeah, this is one of those books that is... I think this was one of the books that I picked up when I was starting to get into more commercial fiction. Because for a long time I basically only read sci-fi fantasy, usually either classic lit or young adult, because I was I mean, it says a lot about me maybe, but that's the sort of thing I was reading. And then I got mad into reading romance and commercial fiction because I'm soft and romantic, honestly. I am generally just, I'm a real softie, and this book really tapped into that. Reveals are all done really well in it as well. There's enough information, because there are a few twists in it. Nothing like major big twist. It's stuff that you can see coming. It's not that it's like, oh well, that was predictable. It's not predictable, but it's not this just came out of nowhere. This doesn't make sense. There's enough hints and clues in it that you go, oh, everything fit nicely together with a twist, which I think is how twists are kind of supposed to work. They're not supposed to come out of nowhere where you sat going, oh, why have you said that? It's, you know, brain, please work for me. Basically, it's a case of there are a few twists more towards the end that fit nicely together, if you will. They fit nicely with the rest of the story, and it all wraps everything up really nicely. And also the romance element of Cassie's story I thought was handled really nicely, because I was worried. I'm trying to phrase this well without having to. I don't want to ruin the story in any way. Basically, I thought it was going to be. It isn't, but I thought it might end up being a little bit of a. I think I've mentioned this phrase before, sort of like, here is my broken boy, oh how I love him kind of thing, because there's a couple mentions of an ex and the way he's like, yeah, I was kind of a shitty person to her, but like, it's not that. It basically, it just seems to be, I've moved on as a person and I'm doing better now, but it's not a, I have found love for you and therefore I am a better person. You know, it's like, a romantic relationship isn't going to make your past troubles go away, and thankfully Alana Fox knows that. So yeah, if you're, I don't know, brain, please work with me. Oh, you can tell I've not done this in a bit. It's only been like 2 weeks. If commercial fiction is generally your thing, this is absolutely the sort of thing to go for. If you also liked Last Night in Soho, this is not a horror book by any means, but if you like the aspects of that, of the way two lives can interact in that way, also the idea of not feeding into nostalgia, this kind of idea of there's an ideal version of a location, especially in certain times. You know, with Last Night in Soho, it was Soho in the 60s. In this, it's same place but in the 80s, and there were a lot of similar vibes for me. This book came out years before the film did. I'm not suggesting there is any actual connection with it, but if that vibe, not meaning the horror elements, more the sort of romanticization of the past and that, especially like recent past, and then that illusion being shattered, also the kind of struggling to find a new life kind of thing, and like things not being as they seem or what they were cracked up to be, all that kind of stuff. I think you'll really like it. I definitely think that give this a go. It's the sort of thing where I want to find more by this author, because I thought this was absolutely wonderful. Let's get on with the next review. So next up, I don't even have a physical copy of this. My mouth doesn't want to work. I don't have a physical copy of this because I was listening to the audiobook, but it is The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. Oh my god, I am obsessed with this book. This is one of the best books I've read in a long time. And before anybody goes, you didn't read it, you had the audiobook, leave, get out my chat. I don't care. Honestly, I could sit here and do a why do people hate audiobooks? Why don't you want neurodivergent people to be happy? But, you know, I don't know. Fuck them, apparently. Anyway, yeah, I had the audiobook for this. I have been listening to it over the past few days. While it's quite long, I can listen to it while I'm at work. And I just, oh my god, I kept getting distracted from my work, which is terrifying because I've only been there for about a week and I'm like really scared about doing things wrong, but I'm like, it's fine. Fuck it, I'll lose a job over this. That's not true. Please don't fire me. But back onto it. This was genuinely just a really fascinating book to listen to. Basically, a woman who... So she was working towards a PhD in Egyptology once upon a time, but had to leave that life behind due to her mother passing away. She had to go and see her mother in hospital, and then basically had to take care of her younger brother, ended up finding a guy, they had a kid together, and had to leave the Egyptology behind. And after an argument, she walks out, and there's basically just these... It feels like these two paths divert, and then it all comes back together, and it's a little bit confusing trying to figure out timelines sometimes, because you're thinking, wait, has one thing followed on from the other, or are these happening at the same time, and it's meant to be a sort of... But there's a lot of talks of quantum theory in there, not to a confusing level, just in a kind of... Here's some interesting... It's an interesting talk about quantum theory, not a... You feel like you're listening to, you know, a PhD lecture kind of thing, and you barely have a GCSE. It's nothing like that. It's just like interesting talk about the idea of, you know, parallel universes kind of thing, usually to do with the idea of decisions. So brain, please. So the idea that, you know, if you make one choice, there is then two versions of you, the person who did make that choice and the person who didn't. Or if you've been given two choices, you know, there's the two versions of you that made each of those choices, and that kind of thing. That's why sometimes the timeline feels like, wait, is this playing on the idea that there are two versions of her, or is this a thing? But that works really well. That works in the book's favour, and then it all comes together, you know, later on, and it all begins to make a lot more sense. There's really nice uses of repetition towards the end of the book, which I really liked, of harking back to the right near the beginning, and it just, it works so well. This really reminded me, for obvious reasons if you've read it, of The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Again, for the idea of, you know, regrets and being able to live out the what ifs kind of idea. It was just, this is the sort of book that I'm going to be thinking about for a long time, as like I did with The Midnight Library. Apparently, metaphysical existential crisis is just like, that's for me. Because this is a book that I'd seen, and I thought, I'll get it later. I'd seen it in a shop, and I thought, maybe I'll get that at some point. That seems interesting. But I was in one of my... I can't be buying more books. I'll find it at some point. And I found it on BorrowBox. I have mentioned this 1,000 times already. I use it as a free way to get audiobooks and also ebooks, but I've only really used it for... Yeah, I am fine. It's just I've got this audiobook, you know, I'm going to be alright. You can search an ebook, you can't search a physical book, and when I've been doing research, that's been easier. But free audiobooks for me, perfect. The library's pretty huge as well. The only real issue is that sometimes you have a case of somebody else has it, because it is more like a library system. It's to do with licensing. That's why there are limited copies of books where only a certain amount of people can have it out at the same time. Usually it's one person. But point is, I got this book from BorrowBox, and I'm really glad I finally picked it up. I just thought, you know what, I'll finally give it a go, because I think I saw that, and weirdly I feel like I saw that and Midnight Library at the same time when I was looking at some books, and I'm just, it really is just one of those books that's going to stick in my head for a really long time. I think it handles certain anxieties really well. You know, the idea of, you know, she's got this teenage daughter who's really struggling with body image issues, and it's the way she talks about it is so good. As in, the way Jodi Picoult talks about it is so good, because it's from the perspective of her mother, so her mother trying to figure out how to broach the subject with her without, you know, having that, okay, I understand why you're having these feelings, without saying, yes, I agree with the negative feelings you're having about yourself. And also just the way the daughter feels and these little movements that she takes to try and hide herself and wanting to feel more open. And she has these certain spaces where she can feel, you know, more herself. And it just, also, I will say I much preferred the scenes in Egypt, but had I read just the story of her life as a death doula in Boston, I would have loved that story, but I just thought all the research stuff was really cool. Also, just the kind of almost classic romance feel of her, of my brain. Why can't I remember her name? My brain's just not going to give it to me. Dawn! That's it. So... but basically, Dawn's time in Egypt really felt like this kind of classic whirlwind romance kind of thing, which I am a bit of a sucker for. It's that enemies to lovers kind of deal, and it just... I love that. I love that so much. And it's just... I think you can tell that I love this book so much through the way that I feel like I can't talk about it, and yet I want to. I could easily talk for hours about this if I went through the book and said, right, I like this, 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 and this. I went through it, but I don't have time for that as much as anything else. But 100% I recommend this book. If you did read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, 100% you're going to love this. And quite frankly, also, if you haven't read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, read that book. It's really fucking good. Please, I need other people in my circle to read this book so I can talk to them about it. This isn't even just a general recommendation for like, yeah, I think you'll really enjoy this book. I need somebody to talk to about it, because it's... What I will say is, emotionally, I nearly cried at work multiple times. Like, so many times. I'm sat there going, I can't just sit here, because I've got I've got my headphone in, I'm just trying to scan my shit through, you know, I'm trying to put books into the warehouse, and I'm just like nearly sobbing. It's yeah, it's a bit rough at times, but well worth it. So worth every tear that I would have shed had I not been at work. Even if I'd have been in public, anywhere else, absolutely would have been sobbing, and I would have had to deal with somebody asking me what's up, why I'm crying that hard in public, because I'm at work, and because I'm so new at work. I've got to be careful. I feel like I'm just like, yeah, I am fine. It's just I've got this audiobook, you know, I'm going to be alright. I don't think I'll get away with it, right? Also, I didn't know my voice could do that. That's fun. Great, love that for me. But yeah, I don't know if I've said it. Actually, I feel like I definitely have. Recommend this book. Go read it. It's fantastic. Wonderful. 10 out of 10. If I do a yearly wrap up this year, I might do 2 wrap ups. Do one of library reads and one of bought books, because I feel like that will be fun and interesting. Then I feel like this will rate quite highly. I really do feel like this would rate quite highly. If I do a top 10, it's gonna be in there. Right, so let's get in the box again, because it is Women's History Month. If what I pick out is not by a woman, then it'll go back and I'll read it in the future. But I don't know what we got here. So we have not by a woman, because I know that is it Jonas Jonasson? Is that how you say it? This was Sweet Sweet Revenge Limited, which is just a book that I bought by him. Let's try again. Also by a man, that's by Tom Holt. Let's try one more. Wonderful! So now we have, and it's right in front of me as well, just behind that. Get closed. So we have, truly, a book that I have been meaning to read for quite some time. I got this on recommendation from a friend at university. So I was at a book club that I was a part of, and this was recommended there, and it is Hagseed by Margaret Atwood. Most well known for The Handmaid's Tale, of course, but known for being Margaret Atwood. But, you know, gotta say it. So this is some wonderful Shakespeare kind of, if I remember rightly, it is. Yeah, The Tempest. It works with The Tempest, which I adore. So let me give a little reading of the blurb. Treacherously toppled from his past as director of the... Oh, Christ. Oh, no. Listen, it's going to be on the screen. And if I say it wrong, be nice to me. Treacherously toppled from his past. No, it's not even past. I'm going to leave all this in. Fuck it. You get to see me struggle. Treacherously toppled from his post as director of the Makeshaweg Festival on the eve of his production of The Tempest, Felix retreats to a backwoods hovel to lick his wounds and mourn his lost daughter, and also to plot his revenge. After 12 years, his chance appears in the shape of a theatre course at a nearby prison. Here, Felix and his inmate actors will stage his Tempest at last, and snare the traitors who destroyed him. But will it remake Felix as his enemies fall? I mean, I don't have to say it sounds brilliant. It's Margaret Atwood. It's gonna be a banger. But as somebody who's also a little bit of a Shakespeare-loving bitch, I'm probably gonna love it, because there's gonna be all sorts of illusions and all that stuff. That's allusions, not illusions, is what I mean. Because I realised, especially with this accent, it all sounds the same. But I'm really looking forward to this. Also, I think I'm spitting and I don't know how obvious it is because I've got the new light, so apologies if that really shows up on camera. I'm going to be looking like Jonathan Groff in Hamilton. Oh, I'm not a Hamilton stan. It's not that I'm better than that, it's just that, you know, you see one Hatsune Miku binder and you can't love something like that again. Oh, I wish I hadn't reminded myself of that. Anyway, I'm probably also going to have an audiobook next week. There's probably going to be audiobooks pretty regularly from now on, mostly because it's a good thing to have with me at work. I think it's going to be, I was about to try and find my phone, I think it's going to be an Angela Carter book. I believe it's called Nights at the Circus. Something like that. And you'll find out next week. But yeah, you'll definitely catch me with this. You'll probably have an Angela Carter audiobook with me to review. I hope you're all well. I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you're seeing this. And take care, everyone. Right.